Hello friends, welcome to Gyan Gurukul economics classes. So we were talking about price discrimination previously, right? We see what are the various ways through which the monopolist could discriminate, or he could resort to the price discrimination in the market, right? Now today we will see what are the various types of price discrimination, which is based on the degree to which or the extent to which price discrimination is carried out in the market. Okay, so on the on the basis of the extent to which price discrimination is carried out, we could divide it, or we could say there are three types of price discrimination present in the market. Okay, the first one we call it the first degree price discrimination. Okay, first degree. Similarly, the second one we call it the second degree, right? Second degree price discrimination, and the third one we call them third degree price discrimination, right? So today we will see one by one how they look like and how they work. Okay, so let's first go to the first degree price discrimination. Okay, so what happens here? It is a kind of actually a imaginary situation, right? In reality we don't generally see the first degree price discrimination. Why? Because in this type of price discrimination, what happens, the monopolist, okay, the monopolist he goes, okay, the monopolist goes to each and every individual, right? He goes to each and every individual and negotiate. Okay, he negotiate with each and every individual or each and every buyer. Okay, each and every buyer in the market, he negotiate with them regarding the price, right? So he approaches a person, talk with him that how much price the person is ready to pay for a certain unit of the commodity. Okay, so let us suppose that the monopolist is selling, we were talking about a monopoly market where the monopoly sells mobile phones, right? He sells mobile phones. So let's suppose he goes to a person, let's say A is a person. Okay, he goes to A and negotiate with him how much money person A is willing to pay for 1 unit of the phone. Okay, so let's say up to this much. Okay, up to this much it represents 1 unit. Okay, so for 1 unit of the commodity, A was willing to pay, let's say, this much, say P1, OP1 price. Okay, now let us suppose that for the next unit, okay, for the next unit sold in the market, he goes to uh, individual B. Okay, he will sell individual B another 1 unit. Sure. Now for the next unit, let's say individual B is willing to pay P2. Okay, he is willing to pay P2 price. Clear? Now what will what will the monopolist to do? He would sell the first unit to consumer A at price OP1, right? That means how the very amount that the that A was willing to pay. Okay, the very price that A was willing to pay, he would sell A that one commodity, that 1 unit of the commodity at that very price. Clear? He will sell him at the very price that he was willing to pay. Clear? Similarly, now when he goes to B and negotiate, he came to know that B is willing to pay OP2 amount of price for 1 unit of the commodity. So he will sell B 1 unit at price OP2. Clear? Remember, OP2, this price is being B, consumer B is willing, he is willing to pay this price OP2, and the monopolist sells the commodity, sells that unit exactly at that price. Sure. Similarly, for each and every unit, for each and every unit of the commodity, he goes to a buyer or an individual buyer and negotiate with him how much he want to pay and sell him exactly at the same price, right? So for that reason, what happens, all the entire consumer surplus that could have been exploited by the consumers is now goes to the monopolist, right? it now goes to the monopolist. Why? Because in the theory of consumer surplus, we have learned that, see, what happens generally, generally in case of, if you see perfect competition, a single price is determined. Okay, a single price is determined in the market. So let's say in case of, if you say in case of perfect competition, the industry would decide the price, and let's say this was the supply curve. Okay, this is the supply curve we are talking about here, perfect competition, right? So this was the supply curve, this is the demand curve, and here equilibrium was achieved. This was the price, that is OP, and the quantity sold was OX. Now each and every unit was sold at OP price under perfect competition, right? So what happens? The person A, the person who was willing to pay OP1 is now getting the commodity at price. He is getting the commodity at price OP. Now remember, see, OP is less than OP1. Okay, OP is less than OP1. Therefore the difference between OP and OP1, that is this much is goes as consumer surplus to whom? To, it goes to A. Okay, A, sorry, our consumer A gets a consumer surplus amounting to P1P in case of perfect competition, right? In case of perfect competition. But here what happens? Here he is paying exactly the same amount that he was willing to pay. Okay, he is paying exactly the same amount he was willing to pay, no less than that amount. That is why under this kind of price discrimination, that is first degree price discrimination, the monopolist gets all the consumer surplus. He gets all the consumer surplus here. He exploits all the consumer surplus, and there is no consumer surplus left for the buyers. Okay, remember, under first degree price competition, there is no consumer surplus left for buyers. Okay, all the consumer surplus is eat up by the monopolist. Why? Because he sells the commodity exactly at the price that each and every individual is willing to pay. For example, I have told you about A and B. Let's say this last unit. Okay, this last unit, he was selling this unit at OP price. Okay, to say someone, some individual called Z. Now Z was willing to pay exactly OP amount, and so he sells Z the commodity at exactly OP price. Clear? So because of this first degree price competition, what happens? All the consumer surplus goes to the monopolist, and that's why it is also called take it or leave it price discrimination. Remember them. Take it or leave it. Why? Because the monopolist goes to each and every individual, right? He negotiate with him and say, once he get to know that this person is willing to pay this much, so he would say, pay this much amount to me, otherwise leave it. Okay, so this is the first degree price discrimination. Clear? Now let's go to the second degree price discrimination, right? Remember, in any kind of price discrimination, in the market, in the monopoly market, if the monopolist is charging uh, more than two prices, okay, it may be 3, it may be 4, it may be 5 or 100. Okay, if the monopoly charges more than two prices in the market, then we call it a second degree price discrimination, right? Then we call it second degree price discrimination. Here what happens? See, up to OX1, the monopolist is he is selling this amount at price OP1. Up to OX1, he is charging OP1 price, right? Now here if you see, let's say for one unit, consumer A was previously willing to pay, let's say, P star. Okay, consumer A was willing to pay OP star, right? OP star. But now up to this amount OX1, see, up to OX1, these individuals here, they are getting the product at OP1 price. Okay, how much A is paying now? OP1. But he was, remember, he was willing to pay OP star, but now he is paying OP1. So the difference that is between OP star and OP1, that is the difference P star P1, sorry, P star P1, okay. let me write it again here, P star P1, this here, this is the consumer surplus to point to not point to consumer A, right? Because he is paying less than what he is willing to pay, so the difference is going to be the consumer surplus for that very person, right? So in case of in case of second degree price discrimination, there is certain amount of consumer surplus that goes to the consumers also, right? There's certain amount of consumer surplus that goes to the consumers also. Unlike first degree, here some units of some amount of consumer surplus goes to consumers as well, right? So if you see the diagram once again, what the monopolist have done, he has actually divided the whole demand or whole market into actually four segments, right? OX1, X1, X2, X2, X3, X3, X4. For O to X1, this amount of commodity is sold at the price OP1. Then from X1 to X2, this amount of commodity has been sold at price OP2, right? This amount is sold at the price OP2. Similarly, for X2, X3 amount, he is selling the price at OP3. And the last X3X, he is selling that very commodity at price OP, right? So all this area, this triangle over here, this area, this area, this area, and this rectangle area, okay, all these four rectangles, they represents the consumer surplus, okay, they represents the consumer surplus. Yes, it is less than that what would have been in case of perfect competition, right? In case of perfect competition, we a consumer surplus was used to be the whole area, okay, this whole area used to be the consumer surplus, but now only this area, okay, this blank area here I have shaped this with red marker, okay, this triangle area and this triangle, these four triangle areas represents consumer surplus in case of second degree price discrimination, okay. So what we learned that unlike first degree, now the consumer, now the producer or the monopolist, he could not approach each and every individual individually, right? Instead, what he does, he divide the market into different segments, okay, according to actually the elasticity of demand. He divide the market into different segments, and from each segment of the market he charges a similar price, okay. So for the market segment OX1, he was charging OP1. Similarly for X1 and X2 segment, he was charging OP2, right? So on and so forth. Clear? Okay. So this was the second degree price discrimination. This basically this particular type is generally we see in case of monopoly markets. Okay. This is a common form of price discrimination. Now, this is the last and the third one, that is the third degree price discrimination. So here what happens, the entire market is divided into two segments based on the elasticity of demand, okay, based on the elasticity demand of the buyers. The monopolist divide the market in two different segments and charges two different prices. Clear? So if you see up to this segment, that is OX1, he was charging OP1 price, and then from X1 and X he was charging OP2 price, right? So here also the consumers don't get the entire consumer surplus, but here they get a huge or a large part of the consumer surplus. So this area over here, this shaded area by a red marker, and this area over here, both these two area represents consumer surplus, okay. So now we will learn this third degree price discrimination with a very suitable diagram. So you have to focus in this because there are too many lines here. So let me first introduce you one by one. So this is AR1, okay, this line AR1. So AR1 is the demand curve, okay, it is the demand curve for one segment of the market, okay, it is the demand curve for one segment of the market. And similarly AR2, this one here, AR2 is the demand for the other segment. Okay, it is the AR2 which is the demand for the other segment, and similarly we get this blue lines, that is the MR1 and MR2 corresponding to AR1 and AR2, right? And when you join horizontally both the two demand curves and both the two MR curves, you get the market, you get the total market demand, and also you get the total market MR curve, right? So see this one here, AR1 plus AR2, it represents this curve. Okay, it is the total market demand curve. And similarly this one here, this blue line, it represents the market marginal revenue curve, that is MR1 plus MR2. Clear? Up to here it is clear? So see, this is the marginal cost curve, right? So in the first market, that is AR1, okay, in the first segment of the market, that is which is represented by AR1 and MR1, if you try to find out the equilibrium position, then see this is the point of equilibrium. Let's denote this as E1. Okay, see at E1 the MC is equal to MR1, right? And also the slope of MC is higher than the slope of MR. So this is the equilibrium point. What is the equilibrium quantity? Equilibrium quantity is Q1. And what is the equilibrium price? Equilibrium price is OP1. Okay, OQ1 up to this and OP1. This is the equilibrium price. Clear? So in this segment, what the monopolist would do, he would sell OQ1 units of the commodity to the first segment, that is represented by the AR1 curve, at price OP1. Okay, this is the first thing. Now let's see what happens to the second segment. This is the A, that is represented by AR2 and MR2, right? So this is MR2. Now MR2 is equal to the MC curve at this point. So let's denote this as E2. Okay, so at E2, you see what is the equilibrium quantity? OQ2. And what is the equilibrium price? We'll go up to this here. Okay, OP2, right? OP2 is the equilibrium price. So in the second segment, what the monopolist do, the monopolist would sell OQ2 amounts of quantity in the second segment of the market at a price which is higher than the previous one. That is, they would sell at the price OP2. Clearly OP2 is greater than OP1, right? There is a difference between OP2 and OP1, you could see in the diagram. Okay, OP2 is clearly greater than OP1, right? Okay, now because of this policy of two price, the monopolist get a certain amount of benefit. Why? Let me show you. Rather than charging two prices, if he would have charged only one price, then what would have been the equilibrium position? See, if for example, if suppose the monopolist charges only one price, okay, one uniform price, for that purpose he would go back to his total, the entire market demand curve and the entire market marginal revenue curve, right? So what is the entire marginal revenue curve, market marginal revenue curve? This was MR1 plus MR2. Okay, this one here. So see where this curve is equal to marginal cost at this point here, over here. So let's denote this point as E3. Okay, now see at point E3, what is the equilibrium quantity? Quantity is OQ dash. Okay, he is selling OQ dash quantity at what is the price? The price is OP dash. Okay, this is the price, this is the price here, OP dash. So if you would have chosen a uniform price, or if he would have charged a uniform price, then he would have charged OP dash and sold the entire quantity in the market, that is OQ dash, right? Okay, remember OQ dash is nothing but OQ2 plus OQ1. Okay, OQ2 plus OQ1, this represents total, that is the OQ dash. Okay, that is the first thing. Now see what happens, because you are charging to different prices rather than a single price, you are bound to lose something. How much you were losing? You were losing this much of revenue. Okay, the shaded area by the red marker, see here, let me note all these points, F, G, H, I. Okay, So the area of the rectangle FGHI, it represents loss. Why loss? Because the firm, or because the monopolist is selling OQ1 units of output at OP1, or you could also say OQ1 is equal to Q2 Q dash. Okay, this area here is exactly equal to this area here, right? So you could say that you are selling OQ1 at price OP1 because of price discrimination, right? Because of price discrimination, you are selling OQ1 at OP1, which you could have been sold in the market at price OP dash, which was greater than OP1, if you have resorted to a single price. Okay, if you would have resorted to a single price, then you could have sold this amount, that is OQ1, at a price OP dash, which is greater than the currently surging price, that is OP1. Clear? See, once again, this is a critical point, so I would try to illustrate it you once again. Okay, because of the price discrimination, you are selling OQ1 quantity at price OP1, right? Clear? But if there was no price discrimination and the monopolist would have charged only a single price, in that case you could have sold this OQ1 amount at a price which is OP dash. Okay, OP dash. Now clearly OP dash is greater than the price OP1, right? So that means this here, that is the area here represented by FGHI, it represents the loss. It represents the loss due to price discrimination. Okay, this represents the loss due to price discrimination. But at the same time, now if you see you are selling OQ2 amount of output. Okay, you are selling OQ2 amount of output at price OP2, right? You are selling OQ amount of output at price OP2, and because of that, this area over here, this area, the shaded area here, the rectangle, that is P2 P dash I, and let's say this is C. Okay, this one is here Z. So I could write that P2 P dash I Z, the area of this rectangle, that is this rectangle here, this, the area of this rectangle represents a profit. It represents a profit because of price discrimination. Okay, this represents a profit because of price discrimination. Why? Because unless there was no price discrimination, you would have sold this OQ2 amount, at a price which was uniform, that is OP dash. Okay, and clearly OP dash is less than OP2. Okay, OP dash is less than OP2. That means in case there was no price discrimination, you would have sold at the price OP dash, which is less than OP2, means it would have been a loss to you. Okay, now as you were selling at a higher price than what would have been under non-price discrimination, so now this represents a profit to you. Okay, now clearly from your eye in the diagram you could see okay, the area of the rectangle P2 P dash I Z is greater than the area of the rectangle FGHI. Okay, the area of the rectangle P2 P dash I Z is greater than the area of the rectangle FGHI, which means even because of the loss of certain revenue because of price discrimination, the increase in higher profit because of price discrimination tends to offset the loss. Okay, it tends to offset the loss, and that's why overall because of price discrimination, the monopolist is a winner. Okay, the monopolist is a winner, because even if we lose some revenue because of price discrimination in one segment of the market, but in the other segment, because of the same price discrimination, he could charge a very high price, and that would give him a very high amount of profit that would offset the loss. Okay, that would offset the loss in other segment, right? So we could say, because of price discrimination in one segment, that is In AR1, he resort to some amount of loss, and the loss is denoted by FGHI rectangle. But at the same time, because of the price discrimination in the second segment of the market, he resort to a high price. He sells the quantity at a higher price, and that's why he gets a profit equal to the rectangle P2 P plus IZ. And as this is higher than the loss FGHI, that means it tends to give him a overall profit. Okay, it tends to give him a overall profit than what would have been possible under non-price discrimination. That's why the monopolists always tend to or try to get excess of the price discrimination, which should give him a higher profit, right? So thank you. A very critical concept. This I tried my best to illustrate, though I don't know if I am successful or not, but let me know it in the comment section. And also, if you like the video, then hit the like button, share our videos with your friends, so then more people could reach us. Also subscribe the channel so to get the latest notifications. Thank you.